SVG's Jason Dackman here, and we're here to talk some very cool technology that we've seen from FloSports FloRacing. We've got a good friend of SVG to chat, Joe Baker, longtime ESPN vet, now VP production over at Flow. Joe, thanks so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it.
Great to see you again, Jason.
So, first of all, tell us a little bit about this production happened in late May, and Flow Sports Flow Racing has been around for about 7 years at this point. Your coverage continues to get more and more sophisticated. You're looking for new elements. So tell me about the in-car camera setup you guys had at the high limit race at Port Royal Speedway in May.
Yeah, it was, the challenge that we face here, Jason, is that, I've got, where I come from, right? I had a long time and a great run at ESPN, but my mind's been filled with all the production tools that are out there at our disposal. And when you come to the streaming world, you don't always have that same budget that I would have in the NASCAR days or the IndyCar days, or certainly the NHRA days and things like that. But the ideas don't leave your head. There's ways to tell a story that are just better told with better tools. And as I watched what we were doing on the Flow Racing product, I realized a light bulb went on for me that also went on for me when I was working on the NHRA tour, which was until we put a camera inside a funny car, you don't appreciate how much steering a funny car driver does going down a straight line. And the same can be said with the first time I went to a dirt late model race, one of the Lucas Oil dirt late model races. I was just amazed by the car control these drivers have. And the same can be said for the midgets at the Chili Bowl, and certainly with Kyle and Brad's High Limit series, the car control is just ridiculous at that level. Cameras in their traditional positions don't do that justice. You see cars sliding through the turns, and it looks awesome, and they're carrying great speed next to each other. But we knew we wanted to get a little bit of a better shot of what the guy was doing inside the car. And that was really the genesis of the idea of like, okay, how do I take what I used to do for a lot more money and work with some vendors that understand, the concept and what we're trying to achieve, but at a place where I can actually afford to do it, and yet still provide that storytelling to the streaming audience the same way we used to in my prior jobs. So that was the genesis of the idea. We started talking with some good friends of mine over at 3G. And they told me about how they were able to downsize their product a little bit, and they felt like they had something that could be a good fit for what we were trying to do. And I was certainly interested in that. And we talked about the old days when I worked with these guys. It's the same crop of folks that have worked with all the other networks on all the other races. So these guys know what they're doing.
Sure, no
But I was
question.
concerned, the same concerns that we had in IndyCar and NHRA is the first thing we're going to hear from the drivers is where are you going to put the cameras and how much is it going to weigh? So we had to overcome that. So we needed an event to test that where we could try this because really in the sprint car space, live in-car cameras, at least that I could tell, it hadn't been done. I'm sure it's been done before by somebody, but it's just not a staple of the coverage, certainly in the streaming space. So we wanted to try it. We needed an event. Port Royal, I selected that one because it's a big track. It's a big, fast track, a lot of space. We needed to know if our receive sites were going to be enough, where to put them. Can you cover a half-mile track? Because most of our tracks aren't that big. So if we could make it work there, we felt like we could make it work just about at any of the other tracks that we go. And that was really the starting point. That's why we picked that event. It's why we talked to Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet, certainly are fantastic partners of ours. They're always looking and they're always pushing, like, what can we do? What can we do that's different? And this is the one that kind of bubbled to the surface, and we said, let's try it there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that really sticks out is, as you've said, look, in-car cameras, while they are still cool to this day, are nothing new. That said, on a dirt car race like this, something that is really just you cannot see the expertise that it requires until you get inside that seat. It really adds to it. So, how did it go? Tell us a little bit about how the broadcast went. Which cars were they outfitted on? Were you happy with the result, so on and so forth?
Yeah, we got rained out the first day. Typical outdoor sporting event, and racing on dirt is even more unforgiving when for rain. But that gave us a little bit of time to at least think about, and talk to the guys about what we were going to do, where we were going to mount, the types of mounts we were going to use. Certainly, we approached Brad Sweet first as one of the partners of ours and co-owners of the series. He was the right guy to start with. James McFadden also carried a camera for us. And the cool thing about what 3G worked on with us was that we didn't know which angle we were going to want to look at. What did we want to see the driver steering in the car? Do we want to look straight ahead and see where they're going? Do we want to look sideways and see who they're passing? We had to try all that out, and we wanted to try different mounting positions to try and figure out what makes sense. And 3G said, well, we got you covered because we can do multiple outputs from the car. We'll just put them in all the different directions you're telling us about, which is exactly what we tried. So we had a great shot looking down at in James McFadden's car of him steering through the corners. And that's when you get that sense of like, this guy's busy. He's busy in that
He's
car.
doing a lot in there. Yeah.
Yeah. In Brad's car, we had a camera on the outside looking forward, and you see how much steering is going into his right front wheel. It accomplishes the exact same storytelling element just without seeing him. So, but it also gives you the added benefit of being able to see what's in front of him. What we learned about that shot is that that also is very susceptible to dirt flying back at it. So we need to keep that into our minds, certainly from a standpoint of being able to clear the lens, but also from a standpoint of the mount has to be able to withstand a clump of dirt hitting it as well. And then we also wanted to see behind. So we tried like different angles. The guys were great to work with. I mean, the teams were so excited about this. They were like, it's funny. The drivers were excited about this. The crew chiefs were like, "How much does it weigh?"
That absolutely checks out.
And that was a big money race for those guys too. So I understand the concerns, but we did learn a lot. We learned a lot about the mounting and the angles, the positioning, the lensing. Some roll cages, some guys sit further in the car than others sit further back. So we had to learn that, which is the right lens to bring. So it was a great show for trying all those different things without really any pressure to have it be exactly right.
It's a perfect petri dish, right? To really kind
Mhm.
of test a new technology like that. Okay, so you've got one under your belt. You tried a bunch of different angles. You had some lessons learned, certainly from both a technical and creative standpoint. What can we expect in the future? Is FloSports FloRacing gonna have some more in-car cams? What are you gonna try to take from that first show and bring to the future?
Yeah, that's certainly our plan. There's a couple things that takeaways. We probably want to work with the series about whether we want to ask cars to carry dummy weight, so there isn't a weight advantage for one versus the or a disadvantage for one versus the other. That's worked well in other series, but in a series like this one where you'll have drivers come and go, it's not the same 39 drivers each week. So is it realistic to think that you'll have like all this dummy weight floating around, or are there teams that are just willing to carry the extra? It's about 6 pounds or so that this package is adding to the car. So for some, that's a huge deal. For others, it's a manageable number. So we have to figure out with the series, where we stand with that, because different drivers certainly will react differently to that, and certainly crew chiefs will react differently to that. We absolutely want to keep this going. This was not a one and done. So when we bring it back out, I think we'll bring it back out. We'll certainly focus on like championship season. There's a lot of value to that, certainly on the high limit tour. Um, but we don't want to just stop with that tour, and that's our entry point. But we've got some great partners with Lucas Oil, with certainly with Dale Jr.'s Cars Tour. We've got a number of high profile drag racing events as well. So any of these things are fair game, and I don't want to forget all the other sports and all the other verticals that Flow Sports has as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be riding around in a vehicle to be storytelling worthy. So there's certainly other sports that we've got that could benefit from this as well.
Very cool. Well, it was really fun to watch. We're excited to see what you guys have coming down the line. Make sure to stay in touch with us. But for now, Joe, always great to see you. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Good seeing you.
For more on this story and other Flow Sports news, check out sportsvideo.org as well as the SVG YouTube channel and SVG Play.